The Dialectic of Sex. The Case for Feminist Revolution. 1970. By Shulamith Firestone. Chapter 5. Racism, the Sexism of the Family of Man. The slave may be freed and woman be where she is, but women cannot be freed and the slave remain where he is. Angelina Grimke, in a letter to Theodore Weld. What must be done, I believe, is that all these problems, particularly the sickness between the white woman and the black man, must be brought out into the open, dealt with, and resolved. I think all of us, the entire nation, will be better off if we bring it all out front. Eldridge Cleaver, on Becoming. The first American book to deal specifically with the connection of sex and racism was Calvin Hernton's Sex and Racism in America. The immediate popularity of the book in both black and white communities confirmed what everyone had known all along, that sex and racism are intricately interwoven. However, Hernton, not sufficiently grasping the depth of the relationship, merely described the obvious, that white men have a thing for black women, that black men have a thing for white women, that black men can't respect black women and white men can't get turned on by white women, that white women have a secret sympathy and curiosity about black men, that black women hate and are jealous of white women, and so on. Even so, the book, as have the many such books and articles since, made instant waves. Why is this? The early civil rights movement had hushed up the truth too long, suited and tied. It had tiptoed about speaking in low tones on the Negro problem. Black people were colored people, they wanted only the same simple things uncolored people wanted. We are just folks. Whereupon whites obligingly filtered their vision to screen out the obvious physical, cultural, and psychological differences. Words like nigger were dropped. Statements like, "Would you want your sister to marry one?" became unforgivable bad taste, a sign of poor breeding. "You are prejudiced," was the accusation of the year. And Martin Luther King masterfully utilized this guilt, turning liberal Christian rhetoric back on itself. But then came Black Power. A rumble of "I told you so's" issued from the nation, especially from the working class, who were closest to the blacks. What they really want is our power, they're after our women. Eldridge Cleaver's honesty and soul on ice clinched it. The heavily sexual nature of the racial issue spilled out. Internally as well, the Black Power movement was increasingly involved in a special kind of machismo, as busy proclaiming manhood as protesting race and class injustice. But it was not the machismo element of Black Power that shook up its enemies. This part of it was rarely questioned by the establishment proper, by the liberal establishment. In fact, Moynihan's paper on black matriarchy can be said to have created that massive castration complex within the black community which he describes, or even by the New Left. It was eminently understandable, after all, that black men would eventually want what all men want, to be on top of their women. In fact, this part of it was reassuring. Black men might become interested in black beauty instead of white. The wave of recent articles bemoaning the black woman's double burden and her lack of an appreciative mate are suspicious. A purity of home and family would lead eventually, perhaps, to conservatism and predictability. No, it was not black manhood itself that got whites uptight, it was what manhood means in action, power. Black men were now out in the open in the male power struggle. "We want what you've got, no more tap dances." White men breathed with relief and began arming. They knew how to cope with this. For once again, it was men versus men, one, rigged, power force against the other. They drew the battle lines with glee. What is this truth that was censored in order to make the civil rights movement acceptable to white America? What is the connection between sex and racism that makes any book on it sell so well? Why are the fears of the common man so sexual in nature when it comes to the Negro? Why does just the sight of a Negro so often evoke strong sexual feelings in a white man? Why do black men lust after white women? Why is racial prejudice so often phrased in sexual terms? Why does lynching, often accompanied by castration, occur as the most extreme manifestation of racism? The connection between sex and racism is obviously much deeper than anyone has cared to go. But though the connection has never been more than superficially explored, already in the 1 decade of the new movement we have a new set of platitudes concerning sex and race, a new dogma for the hips. For example, in the who's who of oppression, a ranking of white man, black woman, black man is still in circulation, despite recent statistics of the Department of Labor. Then there is the brains versus brawn antagonism, as developed by Mailer, Podhoretz, et al., and continued by Cleaver, basically the mystique of the black man's greater virility. And the black womb of Africa, big black mammy in African garb. But this superficial exposure of sex racism was meant only to seal up the issue a different way, this time in the interests of the male anti-establishment. In this chapter I shall attempt to show that racism is a sexual phenomenon. Like sexism in the individual psyche, we can fully understand racism only in terms of the power hierarchies of the family. In the biblical sense, the races are no more than the various parents and siblings of the family of man, and as in the development of sexual classes, the physiological distinction of race became important culturally only due to the unequal distribution of power. Thus, racism is sexism extended. Section 1. The racial family, Oedipus, Electra, the eternal triangle, the brothel behind the scenes. Let us look at race relations in America, a macrocosm of the hierarchical relations within the nuclear family. The white man is father, the white woman wife and mother, her status dependent on his. The blacks, like children, are his property, their physical differentiation branding them the subservient class, in the same way that children form so easily distinguishable a servile class vis-à-vis adults. This power hierarchy creates the psychology of racism, just as, in the nuclear family, it creates the psychology of sexism. Previously we have described the Oedipus complex in the male as that neurosis resulting from enforced subservience to the power of the father. Let us apply this interpretation to the psychology of the black male. The black male at first makes a sympathetic identification with the white female, who is also visibly oppressed by the white man. Because both have been castrated, i.e. made impotent, powerless, in the same way by the father, there is much similarity in the types of psychological oppressions they each must endure, in the sex-repressive nature of these oppressions, and thus in their resulting character formations. They have a special bond in oppression in the same way that the mother and child are united against the father. This accounts for the white woman's frequent identification with the black man personally, and in a more political form, from the abolitionist movement, cf. Harriet Beecher Stowe, to our present black movement. The vicarious nature of this struggle against the white man's dominion is akin to the mother's vicarious identification with the son against the father. The woman has no real hope of her own self-determined struggle, for her it's all lost from the beginning. She is defined in toto as the appendage of the white man, she lives under his day-to-day surveillance isolated from her sisters, she has less aggressive strength. But the mother, white female, knows that if not herself, then at least her son, black male, is potentially male, that is, powerful. But while some women may still attempt to achieve their freedom vicariously through the struggle of the black man or other racially oppressed, also biologically distinct, groups, many other women have resigned from this struggle altogether. Instead they choose to embrace their oppression, identifying their own interests with those of their men in the vain hope that power may rub off. Their solution has been to obliterate their own poor egos, often by love, in order to merge completely into the powerful egos of their men. This hopeless identification is the racism of white women, which perhaps produces an even greater bitterness in black men than the more immediately understandable racism of these women's husbands, for it betokens a betrayal by the mother. Yet it is an inauthentic form of racism, for it arises from a false class consciousness, from the threat to what is, after all, only an illusion of power. If and when it is as strong as or stronger than the white man's racism, it is still different in kind. It is characterized by a peculiar hysteria, which, like the conservatism of the black bourgeoisie, or like the wife screaming at her husband that he treats the children better than he treats her, is, in itself, directly the product of the precariousness of her own classless situation. Thus the black man may become a scapegoat for the venom the woman feels for her husband, but is incapable of admitting directly. So the white woman tends to oscillate between either a vicarious identification with the black man or a hysterical, but inauthentic, racism. Radical women, who, like most women, suffer from benefit of the doughtism towards men in general, especially tend to trust and sympathize with black men, and then are often bitterly disillusioned when black men take personal advantage of them, or when the black movement does not move quickly enough to support the woman's cause. For it is seldom all love and sympathy on the part of the black male either. To return to our analogy, just as the child begins with a bond of sympathy with the mother, and is soon required to transfer his identification from the mother to the father, thus to eradicate the female in himself, so too the black male, in order to be a man, must untie himself from his bond with the white female, relating to her if at all only in a degrading way. In addition, due to his virulent hatred and jealousy of her possessor, the white man, he may lust after her as a thing to be conquered in order to get whitey. Thus, unlike the more clear-cut polarization of feelings in white women, the black man's feelings about the white woman are characterized by their ambivalence, their intense mixture of love and hate, but however he may choose to express this ambivalence, he is unable to control its intensity. Roi Jones's early play Dutchman illustrates some of these psychological tensions and ambivalences in the relationship of the black man to the white woman. In a subway encounter, Clay, a young bourgeois black, and Lula, a blonde vampire, personify them. Clay's contempt for Lula as the white man's plaything mixed with a grudging erotic attraction, her deep and immediate understanding of him, and finally her betrayal ending with a literal backstab, after which she cries rape, getting off scot-free, one must presume to destroy more young black men who were only minding their own business. This is a black man's inner view of the white woman. Lula never comes across as a real woman, so much is she a product of the racial Oedipus complex I have described. The relationship of the black man with the white man, similarly, duplicates the relationship of the male child to the father. We have seen how at a certain point, in order to assert his ego, the child must transfer his identification from the female, powerless, to the male, powerful. He hates the powerful father. But he is offered the alternative. If he does make that transition, on the father's terms, of course, he is rewarded. If he denies it, his manhood, humanity, is called into question. A black man in America can do only one of the following. 1. He can give in to the white man on the white man's terms, and be paid off by the white man, Uncle Tomism. 2. He can refuse such an identification altogether, at which he often surrenders to homosexuality. Or he may continue desperately to try to prove that if not a man in the eyes of white society, at least he is not a woman. The pimp complex, by treating the bitches with open contempt, he demonstrates to all the world that he is in the superior sex class. 3. He may attempt to overthrow the father's power. Such an attempt may, but will not necessarily, encompass a wish to become the father, through subsuming his position of power. Unless the black man makes the first choice, identification with the father on the father's own terms, he is subject to castration, destruction of his maleness, his illegitimate male power, particularly if he tampers with the father's treasure, the cushion for and embodiment of the father's power, his woman. This racial castration occurs not only metaphorically, but literally, in the form of lynching. Let us now apply our political interpretation of the Electra complex to the psychology of the black woman. If the black man is son to the American family, then the black woman is daughter. Her initial sympathy with the white woman, mother, her bond of oppression with her, mother, against the white man, father, is complicated by her later relationship with the white male, father. When she discovers that the white male owns that world of travel and adventure, she, in the subservient position of child, attempts to identify with him, to reject the female in herself. This may be the cause of the greater aggressiveness of the black woman compared with the docility of her white sisters. In the effort to reject the womanly, powerless, element in herself, she develops contempt for the mother, white woman. Like the young girl, she may react to her powerlessness in one of two ways. She may attempt to gain power directly by imitating white men, thus becoming a big achiever, a woman of strong character who rises high, especially for a black woman, or she may attempt to gain power indirectly by seducing the father, voila the black sexpot, thus putting herself in sexual competition with the white woman for the father's favor, causing her to hate and be jealous of the white woman, whom she now must attempt to imitate. Meanwhile, the relationship of the brother, black man, and sister, black woman, is one of rivalry and mutual contempt. Each sees the other as powerless, a lackey desperately trying to get in good with the parents, white man and woman. Each is onto the other's sexual games. It is difficult for them to direct their erotic energies towards each other, they see through each other too well. We can use the family in another way to illuminate the psychology of racism. Let us look at racism as a form of the eternal triangle. In this situation, the white man is husband, the white woman is wife, and the black woman is the other woman. We have seen how this kind of dichotomy between the good and the bad woman is in itself a product of the Oedipus complex. A man is unable to feel both sex and affection for the same object, so he must divide up his feelings. For his wife and mother of his children he feels respect and affection, for the other woman, his sexual receptacle, he feels passion. The further exaggeration of this division through biological differentiation, for example, color, or economic class distinctions, makes the acting out of the sexual schizophrenia itself very convenient. One does not have to bother actually degrading one's sex object to avoid the guilt of breaking the incest taboo. Her attributes, by social definition, already render her degraded. Perhaps the measure of corruption of the individual male psyche can be judged by the degree to which it lusts after black flesh as something exotic, erotic, because forbidden. The black woman, while made to pay the sexploitation price of this schism, is at least freed of the enslavement of the family structure. The white woman, though revered in her role as mother, is permanently chained to her own private tyrant. How do the women of this racial triangle feel about each other? Divide and conquer. Both women have grown hostile to each other, white women feeling contempt for the sluts with no morals, black women feeling envy for the pampered powder puffs. The black woman is jealous of the white woman's legitimacy, privilege, and comfort, but she also feels deep contempt. White women are frigid bitches who have it too easy, leaving black women to do all their white woman's work, from supplying their husband's sex/passion needs and taking care of their children to doing their literal dirty work, help. Similarly, the white woman's contempt for the black woman is mixed with envy, for the black woman's greater sexual license, for her gutsiness, for her freedom from the marriage bind. For after all, the black woman is not under the thumb of a man, but is pretty much her own boss to come and go, to leave the house, to work, much as it is degrading work, or to be shiftless. What the white woman doesn't know is that the black woman, not under the thumb of one man, can now be squashed by all. There is no alternative for either of them than the choice between being public or private property, but because each still believes that the other is getting away with something, both can be fooled into mischanneling their frustration onto each other, rather than onto the real enemy, the man. If, in the white man's sex drama, the white woman plays wife, his private property, and the black woman plays whore, his public property, what role does the black man play? The black man plays pimp. The black man is a pawn in the game of the white man's sexuality. For as we have seen, the black man is not a complete man, nor yet a homosexual, who has given up the struggle for male identity altogether, but a degraded male. That pimp signifies degrading male is borne out by the fact that in the male code to call someone a pimp is tantamount to setting up a duel. I have pointed out the degrading animal terms for the male as well as the female occur regularly only in ghetto slang: stud, cat, dude, spade, jack, etc. The black man's malehood is so questioned by the man that it registers only in terms of his power over and domination of women, who are at least more powerless than himself. Because women are his major weapon in the war of masculinity with the white man, his relation to them becomes corrupted, not like that of man over woman, husband over wife, but like that of pimp over whore. His patronage of the black woman is a false one, though he may even, at times, protect her from the evils of the marketplace. He does so for his own interests. But even when the black man most appears to be her primary exploiter, he is in reality only the indirect agent of her exploitation. For though he may play the mares of his stable against each other, drink and gamble away their money, the hard-won fruits of their direct exploitation by the white man, beat them, and call them names, it will never qualify him as a real man. The real man, as they both know, is the man. He alone can confer legitimacy on either the black male or the black female. And again, as in his wife-whore triangle, he keeps both the pimp and the whore dangling, fighting with him through each other. Most of the tensions of these overlapping triangles appear in the following short quote by a black woman addressed to her man. Quotation by Gayle Stokes. Of course you will say, how can I love you and want to be with you when I come home and you're looking like a slob? Why, white women never open the door for their husbands the way you black bitches do. I should guess not, you ignorant man. Why should they be in such a state when they've got maids like me to do everything for them? There is no screaming at the kids for her, no standing over the hot stove. Everything is done for her, and whether her man loves her or not, he provides. Provides. Do you hear that, nigger? Provides. End of quotation by Gayle Stokes. In Black Woman to Black Man, Liberator, December, 1968. But it is not only the black man's relation to black women that is corrupted by his preoccupation with the white man. For though the black woman may give her last dollar to buy the black man a drink, her real involvement, too, is with the white man. Here is the infidel speaking, from Cleaver's allegory of the black eunuchs. Quotation from Cleaver. Ever since then I always believed that marrying a white man, to a black woman, is like adding the final star to her crown. It's the apex of achievement in her eyes and in the eyes of her sisters. Look at how many family black celebrities marry white men. All of the Negro women who are not celebrities wish they were so that they too could marry white men. Whitey is their dream boy. When they kiss you, it ain't really you they're kissing. They close their eyes and picture their white dream boy. Listen to the grapevine, Jesus Christ the pure is the black woman's psychic bridegroom. You will learn before you die that during coition and at the moment of her orgasm, the black woman, in the first throes of her spasm, shouts out the name of Jesus. Oh Jesus, I'm coming. She shouts to him. And to you it will hurt. It will be like a knife in your heart. It will be the same as if your woman, during orgasm, calls out the name of some sneaky cat who lives down the block. End of quotation from Cleaver. Thus the black woman has as much contempt for the black man as he has for her. A real man could elevate her through marriage, by virtue of his superior class. She can't respect the black man, because she knows he has no power. The white man at least provides for his women, and doesn't beat them. The white man is civil, kind, and polite at all times. She doesn't see that it is in his interests to be that way. Neither the pimp nor the whore will suspect that their polite white customer is responsible for both their destructions. Thus, the all-American family is predicated on the existence of the black ghetto whorehouse. The rape of the black community in America makes possible the existence of the family structure of the larger white community, just as sexual prostitution in general maintains the respectable middle-class family. The black community is the outgroup that supplies the sexual needs of the white human family, keeping it functioning. And that's why there is no family solidity in the ghetto. The way this sex/race system is so often recreated in miniature in private life reveals the depth of the problem. The individual white household is sustained by the lifelong domestic, as well as sexual, exploitation of individual black women. Or, the average ghetto youth does some pimping or even whoring as a matter of course. His value as a man measured by the way he is able to command his bitches, and how many he can command at once. He becomes a master of the smooth line, of double talk. If he is able to string along a white chick, this is an added notch on his belt, for it's a direct blow to the white man, father. This explains the frequent pairing of the white whore with the black pimp. The white woman, mother, is degraded to whore along with the black woman, a direct slap at the white man. She is the father's most precious property, now sold back to him as damaged merchandise. As for the white whore herself, in those few cases where it was a matter of choice, she has expressed the ultimate in masochism. She becomes totally the prey of the white man, rubbing his nose in her acquiescence to the extreme humiliation, a black pimp. Section 2. Black manhood. What is the attitude of the militant black community to this psychosexual degradation that is racism? I have stated that the black male has three choices in reacting to the white male's power over him. 1. He can submit on the terms set up by the white male, at best to become a black celebrity, comedian, athlete, or musician, or a member of the black bourgeoisie. 2. He can refuse the identification altogether, with all the consequences of being defined as less than a man, the ravaged ghetto youth I have described. 3. He can try to revolt and overthrow the father, which may include stealing that power position for himself, political organization for revolution, especially the recent militants. The black movement has chosen the third alternative, by far the healthiest. But how does it plan to accomplish this? One way is to unite with the white forces that are also attempting the same thing. The family once again, the white male left is the weakling legitimate son. The black male is the tough guy bastard brother, the illegitimate son wanting a chance at that power. The half-brothers have made a deal, the disinherited brothers street smarts and raw strength of discontent to aid the pampered neurotic legitimate son, in exchange for tactics, rhetoric, and, above all, for a promise of a portion of that son's birthright when he attains the throne. What the two brothers are really talking about is not justice and equality but male power. And who is little sister? White women on the left are allowed to tag along, occasionally, if they do the dirty work, but more often they get put down, and left out, pests, with their constant demands for inclusion, throwing tantrums at any little male chauvinist remark. The sister fools herself, identifying so strongly with Big Brother that she actually at times begins to believe herself just like him. She finds it harder and harder to identify with that dimming mass of ordinary women out there, Mother, whom she must kill in herself in order to win Big Brother's approval. He encourages her in this. He knows illusions of her coming power will make her more docile in the long run. She can be useful, especially in getting at the father. Moreover, the brothers have made a blood pact. You give me your chicks. The bastard son fulfills his fantasies on little sister while his lordship pretends not to notice, and I'll give you mine. The white boy gets his first real screw while the bastard brother snickers. And the black sister? Black male militants, going for the legit this time, are reordering their sexuality to conform with the going model. Attempts are now being made to institute the family in the black community, to transform the black community from whorehouse for the white family to black family. The black woman is being converted from her previous role, whore, to revered black queen mother of my children. Thus, the bastard son has assumed the role of father within his own community in anticipation of his coming power. Here is a much circulated poster, tacked up in an East Village store window, showing the image of a large formidable profile of a black woman in an afro. It reads, Black Gold. I am the black woman, mother of civilization, queen of the universe. Through me the black man produces his nation. If he does not protect his woman, he will not produce a good nation. It is my duty to teach and train the young, who are the future of the nation. I teach my children the language, history, and culture when they are very young. I teach them to love and respect their father, who works hard so that they may have adequate food, clothing, and shelter. I care and make our home comfortable for my husband. I reflect his love to the children as the moon reflects the light from the sun to the earth. I sit and talk with my husband to work out the daily problems and necessities of running a stable and peaceful household. The best that I can give my nation is strong, healthy, intelligent children who will grow to be the leaders of tomorrow. I'm always aware that the true worth of a nation is reflected through the respect and protection of the woman, so I carry myself in a civilized manner at all times, and teach my children to do the same. I am the black woman. But such a transformation, when it succeeds, is based on fantasy, for as long as the white man is still in power, he has the privilege to define the black community as he chooses. They are dependent on him for their very survival, and the psychosexual consequences of this inferior definition must continue to operate. Thus the concept of the dignified black family rarely penetrates beyond the circles of the copycat bourgeoisie or the true believer revolutionaries. Indeed, one would have to believe fanatically in the revolution to fight off the mindsets resulting from the present sex/race system. One could embrace such a foreign structure only through steadfast visionary anticipation of a different world. That hardcore ghetto youth aren't eager to put such a family structure into practice is understandable. Daily they are at the mercy of the real sexual needs of the white family. They can't afford not to live with their unpleasant reality or to forget for a moment who has the power. In this respect, black revolutionaries are as dangerous as a small band of Nat Turners trying to institute marriage in the slave quarters in anticipation of the coming rebellion. and all exhortations to the contrary. Even the revolutionaries have a hard time purging themselves of the sex/race psychology, finding themselves still irresistibly drawn to the white she-devils. For it lies too deep in their psyches, backed up by the day-to-day realities of power. Here is Cleaver battling with himself. Quotation by Cleaver. One day I saw in a magazine a picture of the white woman who had flirted with and thus caused the death of Emmett Till. While looking at the picture, I felt a little tension in the center of my chest I experience when a woman appeals to me. I looked at the picture again and again, and in spite of everything and against my will and my hate for the woman and everything she represented, she appealed to me. I flew into a rage at myself, at America, at white women, at the history that had placed those tensions of lust and desire in my chest. 2 days later I had a nervous breakdown. End of quotation by Cleaver. Cleaver's greatest virtue as a writer is his honesty. In Soul on Ice we have the psychology of the black man, particularly the consuming love/hate for the ogre, white woman. In fact, Cleaver's development contains most of the ambivalences we have described. We are given some idea of what his previous attitude towards black women was before he here falls in love with a white woman. Quotation by Cleaver. I even respect you behind your back. I have a bad habit, when speaking of women while only men are present, of referring to women as bitches. This bitch this and that bitch that, you know. A while back I was speaking of you to a couple of cutthroats and I said, this bitch. And I felt very ashamed of myself about that. I passed judgment upon myself and suffered spiritually for days afterward. This may seem insignificant, but I attach great importance to it because of the chain of thought kicked off by it. I care about you, am concerned about you, which is all very new for, and a sharp departure from, Eldridge X. End of quotation by Cleaver. Prelude to Love, 3 letters. In general, in these letters, originally written to San Francisco lawyer Beverly Axelrod, Cleaver attempts to rid himself of all the smooth talk, the clever come-on that is the trademark of the black man. He is not always successful. One senses that he has to fight with himself. He catches himself just in time, almost too cleverly, by admitting what he is doing. Now turn the record over and play the other side. I have tried to mislead you. I am not humble at all. But when Beverly expresses cynicism about his love, he assures her elaborately that she must open up to him, trust him. Beverly was right. Her female cynicism, as usual, was more than justified. She wasn't cynical enough. Cleaver, to set an example, married just black enough Kathleen, leaving Beverly stranded. Latest pictures include an infant son. His letters to Beverly, about as personalized and honest as probably he will ever get towards any woman, are followed by a florid letter, testimonial, doctrine, to all black women from all black men. Its balls and womb imagery includes such gems as, across the naked abyss of my negated masculinity, of 400 years, minus my balls, we face each other today, my queen. He reminds her that, torrents of blood flow today from my crotch. And finally, triumphantly, I have entered the den and seized my balls from the teeth of a roaring lion. His pages-long incantations to the black womb of Africa are, to say the least, hardly the best way to go about flattering a woman. For despite his address to black womanhood, Queen Mother Daughter of Africa, Sister of my soul, Black Bride of my passion, my eternal love, Cleaver, in this supposed love letter, is hung up on himself, and on his masculinity. There is no conception of the black woman as a human being in her own right. She is merely a buttress for his own, masculine, self-image. The same old trick in revolutionary guise, the male defining himself negatively as man strong by distinguishing himself from woman weak, through his control of her, like the pimp who rejects the female in himself, achieving a full sense of manhood, power, through domination of all females in his vicinity. The sexual nature of Cleaver's racial agonies is revealed in his attack on Baldwin, which is no more than the vicious attack of the black pimp on the black queen. The queen has chosen to give up the male power identification altogether rather than accept the degrading sexual definition handed down by the white man, thus threatening the pimp, who is fighting a losing battle. And if this attack weren't enough, Cleaver gives away his sexual insecurity through his superstud self-image, Norman Mailer in black. Some promotion, judging by the hysterics of his chest pounding. The transformation of the black woman into the traditional passive female creates a useful negative backdrop against which the black male's own definition of himself as masculine, aggressive, can emerge. And in her capacity as springboard, or practice bouting dummy, the black woman is valuable and must be humbly wooed. Her cooperation is important, for the black man can only be the man if someone becomes the woman. Black women, so hip to lines, seem to have fallen for this one. Here is a rebuke written by another black woman in reply to the accusation of black men by Gayle Stokes that I have quoted above. It is noted for its female anti-womanism. Sure, black men blunder and make mistakes, but don't we? This is normal for someone trying something new, i.e. leadership, so how could you, Gayle Stokes, scrounge up the audacity to prick the black man's balloon? How could you dare to attempt to break his winning streak? Did it ever occur to you that it is you, in fact, who is inadequate? Check yourself, sister, a woman reflects her man. She turns to the black man. Quotation by Gayle Stokes. Black men, I too have heard your cry, ringing from within your newfound pride and African garb. And to that cry I reply, take your rightful place ahead of me, my love. Yes, my black man, you're a real man, a rare man. And in all your struggles I want you to know that I struggle only a few steps behind you, for that is my place in your life. You are all I'm here for. End of quotation by Gayle Stokes. She then assuages his pricked ego by assuring him of her undying loyalty to his balls. Quotation by Gayle Stokes. Having your balls torn from you and still trying to be a man. Oh, those anguished moments of puberty, those growing pains. Tell me how many men have been castrated only to defy that emasculation and grow new balls. You need to be held and loved and told how wonderful you really are. End of quotation by Gayle Stokes. Edith Hambrick, Black Woman to Black Woman, Liberator, December, 1968. But when she does toe the line, her award will not be a personalized kind of love, as in the letters to Beverly Axelrod, but an impersonal one addressed through her to all black womanhood. Here is Bobby Seale from his much-published letter to my wife, like the budding poet's inscription on his girlfriend's Christmas gifts, inevitably appearing in the spring issue of the College Poetry Journal. Quotation by Bobby Seale. Artie honey. Now if I ain't in love with you because I saw something on your face the other morning that said you were a revolutionary, then something is wrong. What's Malik, their 3-year-old son, doing? Teach him how to serve the people by your examples. Artie, I hope you are not being selfish and keeping this letter to yourself. Or, I know you are reading it to the other party members. End of quotation by Bobby Seale. Why do black women, so shrewd about their men in general, settle for this patronizing, impersonal, and uninspired kind of love? Because of the triangle, as we have seen. The black woman has played whore, used and abused by white men, her tricks, and black men, her pimps, for centuries. All this time she has looked with envy at the white woman's legitimacy and security. Now, offered that legitimacy, under whatever crude guise, she is tempted to set it up for herself, not knowing the horrors in store. The wife is the only one who could tell her, but they are not on speaking terms. For, as we have seen, each has learned to focus her frustrations on the other. Their long antagonism makes it hard for them to trade the valuable, and painful, lessons they have learned about the man. If they could, they might soon discover that neither wife nor whore grants freedom, for neither of these roles is self-determined. They might alert to Eldridge Cleaver's warning, as he anticipates his future male power, in one of his rare moments of honesty with women. Quotation by Eldridge Cleaver. Now turn the record over and play the other side. I have tried to mislead you. I am not humble at all. I have no humility and I do not fear you in the least. If I pretend to be shy, if I appear to hesitate, it is only a sham to deceive. By playing the humble part, I succor my fellow men and seduce them of their trust. And then if it suits my advantage, I lower the boom mercilessly. I lied when I stated that I had no sense of myself. I am very well aware of my style. My vanity is as vast as the scope of a dream, my heart is that of a tyrant, my arm is the arm of the executioner. It is only the failure of my plots I fear. End of quotation by Eldridge Cleaver.